Factors for Success is a three-part series. The first looking at mindset, the second at structure, and the third looking at outlook. And I'll go through a little bit of outlook at the very end of this, so you've got an idea of what's coming. But some of you have been kind of following myself and Appa and the Psychological Hive for a while. Some of you, it's new. So to give you a little bit of background, what I'll do is just let you a bit about me to begin with. So I'm an author, I'm a qualified coach, and the architect of the NCS model, which is the essence of what we're going to be looking at today. Hi, Kane.
Hi, you all right?
All good, thanks, Scott.
Sorry I'm a little late.
No worries. We're just going to, I'm just going through kind of introduction and background about myself. So Psychological Hive was a project that was undertaken over 22 years, researching the most successful companies, but also the most successful people that pretty much most of us would attribute as being successful. The likes of Coca-Cola, Nike, Disney, Virgin, Richard Branson, Bill Gates, that kind of genre of successful people and companies. And Psychological Hive discovered 22 elements that are predominant in those organizations and those individuals. Most of us never get taught what those are, and most of us don't have the time or the inclination to go and work out why is it that these companies are consistently...
Dave, no, it's just me. Can you speak up a bit?
Yeah, let me...
Or am I getting too old?
Anything is...
I think it's David, no, it's David that's getting too old.
Here we go. The fun starts already. Is that
Brilliant.
That's better,
Excellent
David.
Stuff. Excellent.
Vincent, please remind me how old you are.
Same age as David.
703 then. So the idea that there is a clear divide between the most successful organizations, the most successful individuals, and the majority of the rest of us is something that most of us kind of can see in practice. And the Psychological Hive set out to try and work out why that was and what could be done to resolve it. And the book was the outcome, and Factors for Success is kind of an add-on three-parter that just focuses on the main elements that exist. Does that all make sense?
Indeed.
Everybody got that? Fabulous. So if you would like a copy of the Psych Hive, you can download a digital copy from the website that's on the screen in front of you. It is something that I think makes a major difference in the way individuals in business and in their private lives can approach the future. The Psych Hive uses therapeutic principles to show how that success happens. And there's more details about that side of things in the guide itself. So, not here to talk about the Psych Hive all that much. So, structures for success. Let me ask you guys an open question. What elements do you believe need to exist for personal and professional success? Feel free to unmute yourselves and chip in.
Oh, I wonder what it do it.
So some of the main kind of features of success, we look at communication. If communication is in place, we tend to be more successful. Would that attribute to the experiences that you guys have?
I don't know if my thing's working here. And,
I can hear you, Kane.
oh, can you hear me? I seem
can.
to have like muted my video and all sorts. So there's a structure for success. Don't copy what I do with technology.
Right, tell you what, let's see if I can't do that. Help you out. Have you got a link to start your video?
No, I can hear you though. Oh, I can see you anyway, so that's fine.
Right, okay, all right then.
Right, sorry, I interrupted you with my bumbling there. Can you repeat the question for us?
Okay, so what elements do you believe need to exist for both personal and professional success?
Oh, loads.
Mindset. Mindset.
I kind of think a sense of kind of personal honesty is needed in whatever you do professional, because you've got to get that balance, haven't you, between being professional but also being true to your own nature as well. So I think a bit of authenticity is required.
So kind of congruence.
Certainly.
So congruence and balance.
Yeah.
Good, cool, fabulous. Anyone else?
So at least competent in what you're doing.
Yeah. So that experience.
Yeah, normally more than competent. You've got to be exceptional, but very least competent.
Yeah. So having experience in what it is that you're undertaking plays a massive part. Cool. So why is it then that the vast majority of us have experienced this kind of structure? Because in everything that has been said, do you see anything in there that depicts balance, congruence, communication, and experience?
I guess experience and competence will supposedly goes up as you progress up the chain, supposedly, but
That's us presuming.
The top executive levels seem to be fixed.
So it's fixed. It's
dodgy handshakes.
Yeah. So it's presumptive. It's perceived. It's not ever, in the majority of cases, something that we see in the most successful organizations. Right? So this is the standard outlook that the majority of us are given. Okay? So how many of you would agree that this is hard, this concept is hardwired into us?
Very much so. I mean, it's the way most businesses are run these days, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. But let's look before business. Let's go back a stage. This is hardwired into us here.
I was just going to say that looks like a family tree. We took everything off. It is that. No, what I mean by family tree, from the moment we can walk, we're taught this hierarchy, aren't we? Who we can trust, who to listen to, who knows best.
Right.
So where your head teacher there is at the top, that's your grandparent, isn't it? Then you've got your parents, then your big sister, big brother. So we're taught that from a very early age, aren't we?
So the grooming of this concept, and I'm glad that you took it. You jumped ahead of me, Vince.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine, but it's hardwired. So if we look at our education system, this has been in place since the 1800s. So everything that we've learned over those 200 years has filtered into, as Vince says, how do we do family? And when we look at these structures, does that structure tell you that this is a school?
No, there's nothing there. It says school, it says teacher, But a teacher could be, like I say, a parent, a grandparent, a
Exactly.
sibling. So,
There is nothing. What makes a school is pupils. There is nothing in that structure that identifies pupils. So what are we telling our young people about their importance and their place within this structure?
well, they're at the bottom now, obviously, and
You can't even see
speak.
them.
Yeah, technically speaking, you can work your way up.
But you're not on this system. You
I am.
don't exist in this structure. When we look at the business model, where do we see clients? Where do we see customers? Where do we see guests?
We don't.
So you see how the most important components of our structure are missing from the representations that we use for businesses, for education, for family.
Mm-hmm.
That void creates a problem in the human psyche because it devalues every single one of us to believe where we fit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when we look at this and these two models, business and education, they are, and the third, as Vince says, the family, they are what create our hardwiring. Now, this structure in the 1800s was put into existence on the basis of a singular dominant character. The boss is the boss, and everyone else needs to follow what the boss says. And when this was presented, around about 1867, I think was the first time this structure was ever muted. What they used was the animal kingdom to represent how humans should succeed. And in doing that, they actually lied to the world. Because the animal kingdom does not work on a single dominant character. And I'll come back to singularities in more detail when we look at the NCS model. But it was based on a lie in order to get this system in place. So as soon as we have that situation unfold and it becomes the standard model, you end up with it ingrained. Does that make sense?
Does indeed.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when businesses start seeing that this doesn't actually work, and in 1961, almost 100 years after this was put in place, some bright spark out of a university in the USA came up with this idea that we have to think outside the box.
Slow learners, aren't we?
Welcome to the human race. But again, there is a misnomer in that. If you stood in front of a room full of people that you are managing, you are leading, you are guiding, whether that's a classroom of children, a business arena, a coaching arena, a family, and you've got this structure on the wall behind you, and you're telling everybody sat in front of you who's looking to you for guidance and support, I need you lot to think outside the box. Do you see the problem that is automatically created in the human brain?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing that came out probably around about the same sort of time is nobody in business should be telling me it's not my job. Do you see how the same psychological imbalance plays out when you've got this structure in the mindset of absolutely everybody that's working for you?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So we've got this structure ingrained in us, and we've got our bosses telling us, think outside the box. Don't tell me it's not your job. But we've spent 200 years grooming people into believing that the system that works is so-and-so's name, their job title in a box, in a system that you don't even apply to. But the idea of thinking outside the box ignores human psychology. Human psychology is binary. Every human brain, every mammalian brain works binary. It's good, it's bad. It will work, it won't work. It's day, it's... Hi, Catherine. So,
Sorry,
I wasn't muted there, I'll mute myself. Thanks.
You thought you could sneak in then, Catherine?
so thinking out of the box not only goes against the hardwiring of the structure, it goes against the hardwiring of the brain. Because you've only got, as you can see on that image, 4 lines of symmetry. 4 lines of symmetry in the human brain means the average human being will be able to create 4 different ideas that will or won't work. The only way that you can break that cycle is to have more boxes around you. So now you multiply the number of ideas that can come out from one particular problem. But businesses make a massive, massive mistake, and have done for 200 years when it comes to this topic. Because we're human, we like to line ourselves with like-minded people. It might be slightly different, they might think slightly differently, but generally we're all in the same playground.
Mm.
So the ideas might change in tone. What they don't do is change in color. And that's because we need different people for different ideas. And when we've got look at the most successful businesses and the most successful people, they do not surround themselves with people that look like, think like, educate like themselves. They go outside of that. They look for the adventure. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
yes.
So when we're looking at the structures for our business and for ourselves as individuals, how many of us go for different colors? And when I'm talking colors as in idea thinking colors, rather than people that are like us.
What I would say to you, David, and Shimmy will agree with me on this because we've had this discussion.
Mm.
The whole idea when we first got together, was sending ourselves off for the new business, was I purposely held back because what I didn't want to do was guide Shimmy down a certain road of thinking. I think, like you say, for any successful business, you need to surround yourself with people that have totally different ideas to actually stretch the brain. Because otherwise, all you're doing is putting yourself in the comfort zone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, you don't want to be challenged. So you're putting yourself in this comfort zone, surrounding yourself by like-minded people. And I have to totally agree, the most successful businesses, because everybody's brain is stretched and excited, you know, whereas all these sort of different ways of thinking.
Absolutely.
So, and a lot of the people that will follow the Psych Hive, will follow this particular series, will already be pushing this boundary. Naturally, you will already be pushing this boundary. And you will already be going to make connections with people that are outside of that comfort zone and learning from their experience and their understandings and their approaches to different problems and different scenarios. So it's fair then to say, I'm guessing from everybody's reaction, when you look at that list of companies that's on the screen, they have a very different structure to the way they work.
Sorry, can you elaborate on that then, David?
Okay, so would you say that the idea of a singularity dominates those businesses? So is it one person at the top coming down the organizational pyramid?
No, I would say it's, no. I would say the person at the top has a vision. And the reason those companies are successful is because he's been able to replicate that vision in different people. You don't have to be like-minded to be on board with somebody's vision. Because each person will see something slightly different in that vision. If that makes sense. But I think all of those very, very strong brands, the one I'm thinking of is obviously is Walt Disney, because I read his sort of life story. But with him, it was more about his vision. And everybody bought into the vision. He wasn't sort of dictating it was my way or the highway. But what he basically did is he created this vision. You know, this paradise or whatever you want to call it. And basically everybody got on board. So.
Right. So it was very much a different approach to what was in the general business arena.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
And that's the same for all of those organizations. There's a very different way in which they structure their operation, the way they engage with their teams, the way they engage with their clients, and the way they demonstrate all of that in their day-to-day operation. So let me give you this. This is the NCS model. It looks very, very different to the organizational pyramid. I'm pretty sure nobody's going to disagree with that one. But this is one system that works for businesses and individuals. And it brings the balance and the equality right across an organization. So the very things that we were saying at the beginning are important to how this works and how success works can be represented in this image. But not just for businesses on their own, but for individuals as well. Because for everyone who's been in business, I would have a wager that half of the battle sometimes can be the individuals that work in a business do not want to be the business. And the business just wants their staff to come in and get on board with what the business vision is. And it creates this conflict between the employee and the company itself. And that conflict just gnaws away at whatever vision a company has. And when you have the organizational pyramid mindset in an organization, those two ideas between individual and business just don't fit. And then you get conflict and you get breakdowns in communication because of that break between the two elements. So the NCS model takes all of the things that we know work in the most successful businesses and in successful people and gives a single representation for both to take away that conflict. Can everybody see that potential flashpoint, by removing, that potential flashpoint, you make life easier for both business and individual? Okay. So I'm going to show it to you side by side. And if there's any questions as we go through, by all means, jump up. Let me just move this out the way.
Excuse me.
Okay. So, right in the center, you'll see on the business side, you have the operational management and you have the boss. And this is where dual management takes place, not singularity management. And I'll go back to the animal kingdom, just like they did 200 years ago, to show why this works. In primates, in big cats, in the vast majority of mammals, I think dolphins as well, but I haven't got the research for it. The experience and the knowledge works that there are two dominant personalities, not one alpha male as was presented in the past. And those two dominant personalities change position dependent on the situation. So for big cats, for example, the pride of lions will be dominated 90% of the day by a dominant female. When it's feeding time, that switches and it goes over to the dominant male. In chimps, it's the same thing. The position of dominance changes based on the situation. And when you look at the most successful companies, that's exactly what happens. The boss, that leader, that vision, invariably describes themselves as, I am the heart of the business, not I'm the top of the tree. And they have one person that they work with probably closer than anybody else on the operational delivery of that business.
Yeah.
And it is that relationship that when you look at the image, you'll see a figure of 8 going around both of those individuals. You see that?
Yeah. Totally.
The figure of 8 is a representation of infinity. And when these two personalities are working together and that communication around both of them is in sync, they will work in infinite collaboration is the word I've just got stuck for. And we can see that in the most successful businesses. Okay. Now, on the individual side, you'll see we have a private side and a public side. And just like in the business side, when those two elements are connected and they are in sync, with individuals, when our private side and our public side are in sync, we tend to feel better, be more balanced, be kind of more engaged with the world around us. When those two elements are pulled apart, we find life more difficult. One of the things that pulls those things apart is going into a workplace where we don't feel like we fit in. Does it make sense?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how does the rest of this all fit together? The baseline for both successful businesses and individuals is the knowledge that we all hold. What do we know? What do we believe? What is our principles? What is our morals? The wider that base is, the wider and deeper our structure can go. But if we don't build our knowledge and we have a narrow field of knowledge, the structure shrinks. So the wider the base, the bigger the foundation, the bigger the structure can be. Solid. Okay? So that bottom triangle is made up of the support systems for you as an individual and for the dual management of an organization. The board of directors in a business, the trustees of a charity, the accountants, the support systems, anything that is there to support the function of those people at the heart. And on individuals, it's your team, your personal family, the people that support you, the people that nurture your well-being and your growth and development. But none of that triangle would be able to hold in place if we're not maximizing the experience of everybody that's contained within that part of the structure. So when we look at the most successful companies, on a regular basis, they will share experience from everyone that is in that support role. They will not turn around to somebody and say, well, that's not how we do things here. They want to know how things are done somewhere else because that widens their knowledge base. And it strengthens their support system. And that's the same when we put a team together for ourselves as individuals, because the experience that they bring to us enables us to grow and build our own personal structures. Yeah? Everybody with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the support system. That's the baseline. That's us as individuals and as managers, directors, operation directors, etc. But the NCS model goes beyond what is just the function of a business or the function of us as an individual. The NCS model takes you into the output. So who is the team that the boss and the operational management have to support? Who are the people that you as an individual support? because they're your team. That's your output. That's your responsibility to make sure they've got all of the things that they need, and that together you're able to build the experience for that team. Because once that's in play, you can improve the interactions of your company and yourselves as individuals. And you now have something that looks very, very balanced. Organically balanced. And if someone in the team is not working in balance with the overall, whether that's here or here, or here or here, you're able to identify it. It stands out. Nobody can hide, because the structure is dependent on everybody being part of that team and working together. And if you notice, there is no job titles being put out in this. There is no hierarchy, because your role is the support of the team, the support of the company. And this is best shown when you see companies that in their employment contracts, they give you 2 job roles. Primary job role is the success of this organization. Your secondary role is to provide support to the organization through X job description. How can somebody turn around to a boss and say, it's not my job, when your primary role, as far as your contract says, is the success of this team? Makes it almost impossible, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So you create a structure that supports the outcome that you want for your business and takes away the hurdles that most businesses find themselves having to jump over every day. But the NCS model isn't finished, because in order for this structure to work, you need communication and you need confidence to surround the whole structure. There is no communication channel, because communication surrounds the organization. How many times as business individuals, as coaches, as support workers, have we heard people say, the most important thing in our business is communication, but it's never, ever working? Because we have this hierarchy that says, I can't speak to the person that's one level above me without the person in between feeling as though they've not done their job right. And the person that you're communicating with saying, well, why aren't you speaking to the person one level below me? What's going on? This flow of communication doesn't work. When we surround an organization and say communication is open, it's the largest, most important component of our business, then show it. And the NCS model has communication and confidence as the largest single part of the structure. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Jumped early, sorry. So
I think there's a bit of subliminal advertising there, David.
I just let me pull that back so I can see you guys. So in very, very simple terms, we're able to show organizations how they can take the things that they tell you are important and represent it to their teams. It means every single person that is important to that company is represented, because they are part of a team. They are not individuals in individual boxes with individual job titles. It means that the interaction that the company or the individual has as their priority is represented. It means that they have a point of focus. And when we looked at mindset 2 weeks ago, point of focus becomes really, really important in absolutely every component part of the planning process for an organization. These things are connected, but if we don't allow the connections to stay in place and be consistent, we have that conflict between the individuals and the professionals, and the professional organizations. And that conflict holds everybody back like an invisible anchor. If you put a pin in the middle of the NCS model, you can spin it. And businesses will always fall back on an excuse that says, we're just being hit by what's going on around us. We're just having to react to the marketplace. Really? Disney's been, and Coca-Cola have been successful for almost 100 years. Do you think they've not been impacted by the world around them in that 100 years? But there is a reason why they have stayed successful. And their structure and their approach, their outlook and their mindset have remained consistent all the way through. Yes, there's been organizational restructuring. Yes, there's been management restructuring. Yes, there's been changes in size. Yes, there's been changes. But their outlook, their mindset, and their organizational structure has largely remained unchanged. So these three elements, if we can replicate in how we work, what can we do? What is the potential for us when we have that balance in the way we work and the way we approach the work that we do? I'd say it maximizes the potential, because we are able to focus on what are the important parts here. Not whether or not John in finance is doing what John needs to be doing in finance, but is John doing what John needs to do for the team? Because what John's doing in finance, I don't understand finance, but if I trust that John is working with this structure, then the team benefits. Providing what John is doing is benefiting the team. I don't have to micromanage what's happening in finance, because we're using a system that puts team above individual success and progression. It puts knowledge at the core of the foundation, and it puts output and interaction at the very top. It's the one thing that we need our clients to know our interactions are the best that they can possibly be. That's not to say that we all get it right every single time, because we won't. But it's a lot easier to do it when you've got a structure that supports what it is that you're trying to achieve. So before I go into the session on Outlook and give you a bit of a kind of glimpse at what Outlook session will look like in 2 weeks, are there any questions? Floor's open to you guys. Anything that you want to go back over or anything else? No, right, quick, right.
So,
Vince?
right, okay. As you know, David, I'm quite outspoken. For me, I would say then, looking at the model that you just presented there, this all starts with recruitment at the beginning. Would you agree?
For any organization, the selection process has to fit with what you've already got in your system.
Okay, so say I was going into a company now, and I'm totally on board, obviously, with your vision, how you see things. And obviously, this is the way Shimmy and I want to go. But say we go into a company that was already, excuse me, quite ingrained with the old method. And you've most probably got a few key players on board. They're on board with what you want to do, but all the lower level isn't. Okay. Now, that's not me being dictatorial and saying, they're lower down or anything like that. But let's just say the soldiers on the front line will always need a general to sort of direct them, no matter what happens. Unfortunately, that is the way it is. How would you approach that? Because otherwise, I'm going in and saying, this is a new way, this is my way. You've got to come on board with my way. Am I then not perpetuating?
Perpetuating the old way in order to change it to a new way.
Yeah. Am I then not imposing my views? Does that then become, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Am I not then dictating what I want?
If you go the way, the traditional approach, then yeah. And
if I go the traditional way, I'll go in and say, right, okay, let's just continue doing things the way we are.
No,
however, you will do the way I tell you to do it.
Okay.
So I think.
So the way I approach organizations in order so they can grow, I'm not here to change what they do. I'm not here to redesign what they do. I'm here to help them grow into what they want to achieve. And what this structure does is allow the organization to grow its DNA in such a way that when it starts recruiting people into this system, they stay in this organization.
So it's a company detox.
It ties in to the human psychology, the comfort level. So when somebody comes into a company that's working this way, it fits. It gets comfortable real quick, which means you can do your company induction, which is something else that we sell, but it gives them a way of reducing their employment turnover and the costs involved.
But I should imagine you go through initial periods where you've come in, you're recruiting the new people with the new vision. You're naturally going to get, not dead wood, but people that don't sort of buy into that vision that will leave. So I should imagine there will be a transition period.
Yeah. Part of the way that the app supports avoiding that, probably the best way of describing that situation, is we offer organizations the seminars that we go into the company for the staff that are already there, so they can see the skill sets that we're going to be bringing into the company.
Yeah,
they can get the introduction over the course of a couple of days, that when we then start bringing people on board, the company are already able to receive them. It's about growth. It's not about coming in and saying, right, here is a brand new system. You guys need to change over to this, because most companies will just go, whoa, we're doing all right. Thank you very much. You're not doing Disney all right. You're not doing Apple all right. You're doing okay for where you're at. But would you like this Ferrari to be waxed with the stuff from the car wash, or would you like the beeswax from the polish? You know, it's about saying, This isn't about changing what you do. This is about growing it so you achieve what you want quicker with less cost.
Cool.
Any other questions?
I've always found it a poor management style to simply do sit and dictate. It never quite works. You always got to, and also it's thrown away knowledge. I mean, if you're going to introduce a new system, a new production line, for example, sure you talk to technicians and people who design the machinery and manufacturers, supply, all the rest of it. But the other person you talk to is the foreman on the shop floor, the machinist who's got to actually run the machine. And this is what we're trying to do. What do you reckon? Because they're the people that will give you that feedback that can save you millions.
Yeah. And the thing with the NCS model is because you are surrounding it by communication. Exactly. It surrounds that communication. It's not a conversation flow. It's about opening the doors, identifying that their experience is just as important at the top of that structure as the experience of the board directors at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I got put when I was quite first started out in life. I was an engineer who did some designs, which were then, this is for the North Sea oil industry. Lots of went to Aberdeen and Texas and stuff like that, umbilical cords and the like. And the number of times the boss will call me out and say, effing you, Carachuro, again, go out, see what best you've made for your designs. And I learned, particularly if it's something, a new concept of coming up with, to talk to Guido, who did the extruding, Jeff, who did the twisting. I might even go down to Royston where they made the electrical cables. And
But it's that communication.
And you make friends. You involve them. You're involved with them. They're involved with you. It just makes life, so much easier. You're all part of a team.
And it sparks new ideas, though, as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's the whole idea. And I think if what we're discussing here is creating, I would say, an environment to allow that to grow. Do you know what I mean? So,
but you see how organic that environment becomes when the structure is in place to allow the environment to exist. And when you've got that situation in place, the potential for growth explodes. Because what you're doing is the factors of success are said right from the very beginning. You create the environment for the outcome that you want. And you do that through your structure, through the outlook, and from the mindset. And if the mindset is the boss is in charge and we've got to follow the boss, you won't change it because you're looking at tick box management. You'll never get there because nobody gets to the end of their list because the world keeps spinning. And the list just keeps getting longer. The whole point of the NCS model and the reason why it's in the shape that it is because when organizations are using that structure, they automatically connect. They fit together, they work together, the collaboration goes up because they are that joint working system. And when you've got that hive building, your network of organizations that you're working with the same outlook, the same mindset, all of a sudden you can't get taken down by what's happening in the world around you. Because you've built the structure so that you can survive along with those collaborative partners that you're working with. Part of the reason why in less than a year, APA has made progress it has is because this is the very structure that we use. We've gone from a situation in the psychological arena where any new organization coming onto the marketplace usually gets crushed very, very quickly. It's a closed environment. In a year, we have already started to lead the field in changes in how things are done in the field. Policy changes are happening in larger organizations that have been around for 50 years. We are seeing our approaches be adopted across the sector. Now, if we didn't create the environment where that could happen, it wouldn't happen. And it's just a small example of how we can take the structure, the mindset, and the outlook, work with them to create the outcome that we want.
Now,
And you can do all of that yourselves. Catherine, yes, sorry.
I don't know much about this, right? But it's quite interesting. So, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, you're looking fantastic.
Okay,
Very brutally honest there, Catherine.
so what I've picked up is so far is that you're talking about moving away from a hierarchical system in a business and you coming in and making it more of a collaborative in business, okay? And that's as much as I've understood what you're speaking about. I don't know much of the business, but what I was going to say is, so I'm going to unplug these. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
So how, after I worked in a workplace there, which I've left, okay, I was furloughed and I've now left it, but it was a very hierarchical structure in it, okay? It was within the psychological field. I was working as a therapist. So, but how would you, and there was a manager that came in who was trying to make it more of a collaborative approach in it, but how would you do that as your business then? I think that would be very difficult because you're saying it's from a growth standpoint. You're coming into one structure which is hierarchical. That would be very difficult to change the mindsets of that sort of structure of the people that, particularly the people that are at the top of that structure, because do you think they're really wanting to down the other people's levels?
But that's what we were discussing before, Catherine. I think what David was saying is, if the guy at the very top doesn't want to change, no matter what you do, you will never change the mindset of that company.
Absolutely, yeah, I do.
The guy at the top needs to be open to growing that business. It's hard for him, but if I said, okay, would you prefer a title or would you prefer a nice bonus by adopting this new way of thinking? I know which I would do. But unfortunately, very old school companies, and there's still some out there, will have this old school, you know what I mean, old school, is it old school boy network? Where that's it, you know, that's the way it's been done for 100 years, should never change. The good thing is now, though, so many new companies, even psychology now is changing, that new ways of thinking are coming in because new bosses are coming in, younger bosses are coming in. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, in my sort of age bracket, I've seen massive changes in my industry in hospitality, that the old boys say, no, this is the way it is. But I'm in the middle now where I'm saying, well, why? Why does it have to continue to be that way?
I mean, so I was saying that in the hospitality sector 20 years ago.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'd have to agree with you there, David, because I was listening.
and it will be the same again and again and again, and it's called evolution. And the thing with the NCS model is, and I've gone into those companies, Catherine, where it's very much, I am the boss. This is my company. Who the hell do you think you are? Oh, I've got a label here somewhere. My mum sewed it into my shirt. But I've always gone in with the presentation that this isn't about changing who you are as the boss, changing anything about what the company does. It's about re-representing how the company does what it does. And representing it in a way that they go from being that dictatorial boss in charge of absolutely everything and nothing else matters unless I say so, blah, 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 to I'm the heart of this organization. And I am going to help this company grow in a way we've never experienced growth before, because I'm going to take away the conflict between us and our teams. I'm going to bring these together. And when a boss is in that dictatorial situation, invariably there is a degree of psychopathy that is attached to ego, that is attached to fear, and is attached to a sense of failure that they cannot let go of.
Okay, and what I would say as well is, David, sorry for interrupting, growth in a company isn't always financial, because a lot of new companies will do very well in the first 5 years, get floated on the stock market because it was a brilliant concept originally. But what happens then is, if that growth process within the team is stunted, that company won't go anywhere. It becomes stagnant.
Right.
So, you know, even if though it's maybe sort of financially viable, it becomes stagnant.
Yeah. And this at this point, I think it's worth kind of bringing Michelle in a little bit on this one. I'm going to put Michelle on the spot for a second, because like I said in the presentation, we were told that the hierarchy structure was because it fitted with the animal kingdom. And we knew it was a lie then, because we knew that wasn't the case. But we also know it's a lie now. And when we see companies who say, right, we're going to do away with that pyramid and we're going to have a flat line structure. Great. Who signs the checks? Right? Doesn't work. It's all very nice and it's all very comforting to your staff, but quite frankly, in the words of another coach from the US, it's horse shit. You can't do that because you have things that need to happen within your organization where responsibilities play out. And when we look at the reality of the animal kingdom, Michelle, here you come, we don't have singularities in charge, do we?
No.
We don't have that sense of it's your place to do X and nothing else. It's the overall, the herd, the pack, the pride, the troop. Everything has a role in everything. But when you're working with equines, how important is the power of the herd over a singularity within it?
It's incredibly important, because as soon as, you know, if you think about a wild herd, as soon as one is separated from the herd, they're in the greatest danger. But a lot of people think that the dominance exists in a herd because domestication means that something is missing in that animal's life. So the way they're being managed, which is why it works in the business sense, the way they are being managed doesn't fit with their ethological needs. Therefore, you see dominance behaviours being exhibited, or because of issues. So like last night, I was stood videoing the girls being my horses, not my children.
Can we just clarify that?
Yeah.
We get them in my history now.
And I was actually just looking at them thinking, wow, they look really nice together, and I have to separate them in the summer because I take one away with their ethological needs. To manage their weight and health and protect them from laminitis, I have to restrict their grazing. So then Moo, and she's called Moo for a reason, can become aggressive. And yesterday they were just stood quietly together, and I thought, oh, isn't this lovely? And from what appeared to be nowhere, she lunged across the fence, teeth baring at Echo. So I sent the video to 3 of my friends and I said, what's going on here? And actually, with a blink of an eye and the move of an ear, and how minute is that language, she'd asked Echo to move out of her space. Echo completely ignored her. Moo was then trigger stacked, which we think was heat, flies, cows in the corner of the field being TB tested, and me saying, who wants yum-yums, that caused her to lunge towards Moo. So this is just a really quick scenario, but the point is, if there's aggression in or any dominant or egotistical behaviour being exhibited in the workplace, it comes from a place of insecurity or anxiety or fear. And that's just my belief on it.
Yeah.
And the alpha model, the alpha mare or alpha stallion, that theory is being dispelled in the Equine Centre hundreds of thousands of times over the last 25 years.
And this is where it plays out in the human arena. Because in that hierarchical structure, that triggering that Michelle just spoke about, you can't see it. You only see that things aren't working. You see the breakdown in communication. You see that flare up within the team, but you don't see what's causing it. With the NCS model, it's really hard to hide those triggers. Really hard, which means the system can then account for that trigger. It can act on that, it can respond, and it can reduce the impact of it. And it takes away the fear of that hierarchical structure. Now, as the architect of that model, I believe in it 110%. And I haven't come across a single organization that has not benefited from understanding and implementing that approach. And that is whether we've done it as matrix testing on different businesses or whether we've put it into action. The benefit is 100% at a time, because you're taking away the pressure points on a business. And when you take away them on the business side, you take away them on the individual side. This is a double-sided coin, and you cannot lose a coin toss with a double-sided. So that is the NCS model. That is what I believe to be the most collaborative, supportive, intuitive, biologically and psychologically connected structure that works for us as individuals and as for businesses that has ever been put together. Because I don't see a single structure out there other than this, that where a company says these are what are important, it's included. It's the only one that does it. And when we can do that with the people that we work with, and we can engage with them on those levels before we even think about bringing new people into an organization. Let's get the organization right. Let's get that self-awareness about what works for the organization in place. So when somebody comes in, they're not coming through the door, doing 3 weeks and going, whoa, don't like this, see ya, gone. Because there's no psychological connection with the organization. Let's work it the flip way round. Let's get it right from the inside, then bring people into it. And what APA has done is design how that organization not only take the structure, but then take the selection process. So we actually test the people that we want to potentially interview. Let's put them into a situation where we can see how they respond to the pressures of the working environment. Because anyone can be coached to get through an interview 3 times. They can't be coached to be themselves for 4 or 5 hours under pressure. Let's make sure that the people that are coming into the business are actually going to fit first time. And then let's give them an induction process that fits with the model and the structure and the mindset of the organization. Not something that CIPD have banged together over the last 6 weeks and given a tick box and go, here you go, guys, have you got all of this in place? Great. We've spent 3 weeks getting people through the checklist from CIPD. Now I've got to recruit somebody else because I can't carry on working with these people. Who's paying that bill? Comes down to that employer. So let's give companies, let's give employers the tools to be able to reach where they want to reach. And let's use the evidence of the most successful companies, most successful organizations. Makes sense? Or am I talking complete out of left field?
It makes sense, but it sounds very simple. I don't mean simple, simplified, but it's just coming to my mind. It must be, in reality, it'll be so much more complex to actually put that into practice because there's so many other factors that come into it. But in saying that, I'm sure it is a more complex model. I'm just hearing a little snapshot of it just now, you know.
As I said right at the very beginning, Catherine, which I think you might have missed, was that this comes out of and is part of 21 elements that have been researched over 22 years. So this is a component part of a bigger support system. And it's the component, you know, it's the crucial component part, if you like. This is like the foundation stone. And all of the other elements fit around it to create the psychological hive. So before I kind of go too much further, let me see if I can.
Excuse me.
No, not that one. I'll get the right screen in a second, guys. Bear with me. We will go down here.
Here we go again.
Okay.
Subliminal advertising.
Right. So the last session is on the 19th, and that looks at the outlook for success. And this will give you a bit of an idea, Catherine, about some of the things and the complexities and the other issues that can kind of hold up that transition and that growth. So outlook for success will cover those 6 elements. Very, very simply, very, very straightforward. So TUB communication is all around what's trustable, understandable, and believable. Building a positive wall, that's how you defend and protect what it is that your business and you as an individual are looking to achieve. Excuses or results, you can't have both. We'll go into that in a bit more detail. My story, my future is really for those leaders that are able to take their own story and use it to define their future, not use it as an anchor for their past. Needs, wants, and desires. When we have the outlook for success, we know exactly what is a need, what is a want, what's a desire for our business, but also for us as individuals. And then protecting your attitude is something that every single one of those most successful companies does without question. It's almost a part of their DNA. And we'll talk about just how we can, as individuals and as businesses, protect attitude. So that is in 2 weeks' time.
19th, so.
19th, yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's not a silver bullet. That is the one thing that I will say on every single one of these sessions. The Psych Hive is not a silver bullet. As Catherine rightly pointed out, there are so many variables that we have to be able to flex in a way that we don't usually do. And when you look at the most successful companies, most successful organizations, the one thing they do better than absolutely anybody else is flex. And that is, if there is a silver bullet, it's the ability to flex. But if you don't have these elements in place, it's almost impossible to flex. So, your thoughts?
Just, what does NCS stand for?
It stands for New Concept Solution. And no, Vince, you can't go and take it. That one's mine.
Oh no, you haven't seen what we've come up with.
I'm looking forward to it.
You know my sense of humour.
Oh, like I say, I'm looking forward to actually you guys getting out of lockdown and being able to see what you guys are coming up with. I'm really excited on that one. But can you see from this how the grooming that we've all been through has had such a devastating kind of restrictive hold on what we've been able to achieve?
Very much so. I mean, from Shimmy and I's point of view, David, yeah, our background is in hospitality. However, we see, you know, there's an old way of thinking as stunting like the UK growth, full stop. You know, it is the UK way of thinking. You know, people that go overseas obviously come back with different ways of thinking, more enlightened ways of thinking. I think, unfortunately, the UK way of doing things is the old schoolboy network, and that's why, you know, things haven't really sort of changed. If you look at most of the new companies, the app companies, it's because people are thinking differently. Do you know what I mean? So it's, and like I say, it's an exciting time for me and Shimmy next year. Isn't it, Shimmy?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Because we're going to change the world.
Absolutely.
He's going to change. Shimmy's going to change it from the inside. I'm going to change it from the outside. That's why we're a winning formula.
Absolutely.
And like you say, the UK system is an old system. Kane, your experience and connection with the education system, I'm sure will kind of highlight, if nothing else, just how old our education system is and how slowly it's moving.
What's he trying to say, Kane?
I knew
I'd ask
you would
him
say
to clarify
something.
that.
Well, I mean, I've got experience of working in education systems, social services, NHS, and the one out of all those kind of statues that seems to be trying to change is the NHS, but it's a long way from being inspirational, creative. It thinks it's been, because it's making quite radical changes for itself, but on the scale of change that's needed, I think what you said earlier, I find this in every work I've ever done. It's why I ended up freelance, because I couldn't work with anybody. Was that people say they want to change, but inside they're too afraid to do it and break the status quo. So you do get that conflict where a lot of agencies create the illusion or delusion that they are changing, pat themselves on the back and group think about it. So how I do it, I mean, I'm a bit extreme. I'm like the black dot on a white canvas, really. But it's good to do something quite radical within your own business, and look at what everyone's doing and do the complete opposite of them, you know. And it's got to be brave enough to take small risks with your business and your life, you know, and experiment and embrace failure. That's what I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
You learn a lot from failure. You can turn failure as well as your own story to actually give your business its own unique niche in the world. Because everything I do is based on experience in my life, and now wanting to go and my business is shaped around my personal story. And it's really important. And that, what I find with leaders at the top of the bigger the institution, they're afraid to not only tell their story authentically, it's often quite corporately done, but just to sit down for a cup of tea and say, look, this is the shit of my life, man, and this is why I set up my business.
But
this is
Kane,
where my passion really comes from.
But don't you think, Kane, once they start glossing over their own experience, that's when people start smelling bullshit?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the more authentic you can be, the more people are on board with that.
Absolutely.
Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. And that's what I've done. And that's where the bravery of experiment comes in. Because in a world that's living superficially, it's very, very brave and difficult to go, hey, here's a bit of rawness of me, good and bad, you know. But the benefits to your own sort of sense of liberation and creativity in your business is fantastic. And what I've found is people are often just waiting for somebody to be the first one who speaks up.
Yeah, the first one to say, I made a mistake. Nobody likes to be the first one to put their hand up and say, listen, I've, pardon my French online, but, you know, I fucked up. Excuse me, I fucked up. Do you know what I mean?
The way I work is I'm a freelancer, but I pull lots of different people into work on projects with me. So I'm almost starting a business every 6 months with new people. And they range from people that are living on the street smoking crack to people that run organisations, and I pull them all together in the same room, and it's fantastically chaotic and brilliant. But what happens with that is I often have sessions with those people where I have like fucked up Fridays where we all go and we have to confess what we're fucked up about, and it's so funny and liberating. It really is liberating. And then everybody solves problems.
Let me just cut in, guys. Let me just cut in. What you're talking about is the very core of the psychological hive. That slide I put up at the beginning that said that the psychological hive talks about using therapeutic principles to build successful business. That slide. You remember that one? Let me just, we've got an issue here. Give me a second. Technical.
Excuse me.
Right.
Should we talk amongst ourselves, David, while you're sorting it out?
No, it's all it's fixed. Right. So the slide that I put up that said about using therapeutic principles to build successful businesses. The core of every therapeutic discipline comes down to empathy, congruence, and unconditional positive regard. And everything that you have just spoken about, Kane, Vince, Shimmy, Nino, it all comes down to, are we empathic about the work that we do? Are we congruent about ourselves? And have we got unconditional positive regard for the people that we engage with? Because when we've got those three things in ourselves, they flow into our business. And when they flow into our business, we have a model that works. Organically, it grows, it evolves, but it stays within the framework of the structure that you place on it. The three most important elements for the successful businesses are always going to be the structure, the mindset, and the outlook. And they are so interlinked that when you have that self-awareness of empathy, congruence, and unconditional positive regard, they're like teeth on cogs. They fit together and the machine just works. Whether that machine is us as individuals or a business, whether it's humans or whether it's a herd of equines, whether it's a pack of canines or a troop of chimps, these things all play into the success of those bodies, if you like. So I want to say thank you to everyone that's joined, for
Cheers,
everyone
thank you, David.
that has
Cheers.
tuned in. Before I close and kind of end the recording side of this, I'd like to pay a special thank you to Teresa, who has joined us from Sacramento. I love the fact that we've got somebody from the States who's a coach.
So there, isn't it?
I really, I would like Teresa to share with us before we close from a US perspective about structures, because we've talked about the education system here. We've talked about how we're tied into this kind of thought process and this structure, but to get, you know, a sense of Teresa's thoughts from the US system approach, what can we learn from the US, or what can the US learn from this model?
Well, I actually like the structure you came. At first, I was a little confused, but then at the end, it's about the person at the top making the adjustment and making the changes, and understanding that in order for us to grow in that direction, we've got to make changes anyway. You can't stay doing the same thing that you've been doing with very little impact.
And expect changes. Yeah.
It's the same thing that happens over here, you know, and just like the young lady talked about, you know, with her horses and, you know, and where all of that difference comes in from, it does play by, you know, our behavior, action, or how we think and perceive things, whether it is a fear, anxiety, or whatever. Instead of just kind of looking at the bigger picture, sometimes people are just staying closed-minded and kind of like what you said, thinking outside the box. Sometimes people don't want to think outside the box because they want to do it their way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I'm really glad that I asked you, because what it shows is that what we've all talked about is not a UK specific dynamic. Right. This is human. So where we go up against those organizations and those individuals that present resistance to us, it's not because it's a UK thing. It's not because of a kind of systematic grooming within one arena. This is humanity. Right. And when we go in to provide support and growth and guidance, we have to take it at the human level. Those individuals that are at the top that want to do it their way, that's great. It's absolutely fine. But has that got you where you want to get to? Invariably, if they're stood in front of somebody that's been invited there to find an alternative way, then it's because the way that they're working hasn't achieved for whatever reason. That doesn't mean to say what they're doing won't work. It might mean you just have to adjust some of the variables around it. Don't throw the baby away with the bathwater just because the boss says this is the way I want to do it. Look at what else is going on around that environment. Just like Michelle said, it wasn't until someone took a look at that video and was able to highlight one of the variables was she able then to work with what was happening with the herd. We have to do the same with organizations. And it's one of the things that APA and the Community Learning Hive will continually seek to provide that support to employers, to businesses, to those that are disadvantaged, but also to support the professionals that provide that support. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. I'm going to end the record, and then everyone that's here, we can carry on talking. But for everyone watching this, I want to say a massive, massive thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.